only find their own lovelessness. Those who seek out love will only find their own lovelessness. What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Welcome in. Don't forget to tap the screen, hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to follow, leave some comments. That gets the algorithm bumping. If you want to give gifts, go ahead. So, those who seek, right? Not seek as in like, right? But those who seek only find the opposite. Now we're gonna talk about that, but then Neville talks about, you know, those who are embraced by love, right? Essentially are putting on the cloak of the risen Christ. What does that mean? Like, because what is he talking about here? And is it the love that we talk about when we're talking about happy endings at the end of a movie, like in Hollywood, when you go to watch movies and you have popcorn and soda and all of these crazy accoutrements? I don't even know what that word means, but I'm just using it because I Googled it before this. I'm kidding. I know what it means. Come on in, guys. So we're going to talk about love, but we're not talking about the boring ass love that you see in the movies. That's not what it is. But why is this important for manifestation? Because this is not just manifesting love for like a special person. This is about manifesting anything. And if you don't have a love for a thing, so this is going to work in 3 tiers. Remember, Neville talks in levels. He is not talking ever. 90% of the time, he's not talking literally. Problem is, most people think he's a literal writer. He is not a literal writer. The guy was influenced by a lot of esotericism, which includes the things like the Kabbalah, which I'm trained in, right? And everything is about deeper layers. Everything's about going deeper. He even talks about this, right? And he talks about the violin. Okay. So what is love, baby? Don't hurt me. So guys, if you're in here, say hello. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Tell me where you're from. If you're new, welcome. And but you know me, we have to go to an origin. Because I think the most important thing is that when we're talking about when he's critiquing, and I do see it as a critique, when he says, you know, those that seek love end up finding out their own lovelessness. Yes. Yeah. So I'm part of a program. I'm in year 4 right now. And I've also learned like academic Hebrew and academic Aramaic and the Ugarit, which is like the ancient Canaanite language, which a lot of the argument says that the ancient Hebrews, if they existed, came from that group. So a lot of the schisms were probably never really schisms. It was just stories to talk about, you know, separation. But when the Bible talks about love, what is love? So Kratos, how are you? What have you been up to? Introduce yourself. Welcome. Don't forget to hit that like button. If you don't follow, hit that follow button. There's also a free link to my Discord as well. And we'd love to have you in there. And so we have to have a working definition of love, but I want to go to his first quote and then we'll go to his second quote. So his first quote is this: those that seek love only find their own lovelessness. Can I see the future like tomorrow? Well, tomorrow doesn't exist. So, yeah, probably then. So I can see now and you can see now, and that's the future, right? Unless you change it. And that's ultimately, so remember, everything's in levels. He's writing in levels. There isn't one idea that of Neville's that isn't at least 3 levels deeper than what he's writing. What do I mean? Well, like I've talked about before. Hey, Pepper. What's up, guys? Come on in, introduce yourself, hit the like button, please. That sends out more of the algorithm. Tap. I don't want the lottery. The lottery to me is a waste of time and the worst idea we humans have ever created, because it doesn't actually give you wealth. It gives you money. And I'm a behavioral scientist. And so I've done research, and I've loads of research out there, right? That shows that pretty much almost everybody who's won the lottery didn't change their lives over a 5-year period. And I'm happy to show you the links. This research was done by fellow colleagues. let me see. So Kratos, you're welcome to come in. You're welcome to hang out, but you're also welcome to get blocked. People love to come on here and try to troll. That's not what I'm about. So I'll leave the choice up to you. This is about positivity, and so that's up to you. I will let you take your own responsibility. So yeah. So back to this idea. Neville's talking about if you seek, right? If you seek, okay? If you seek love, then you'll only find your own lovelessness, right? And so what does that mean? Well, that means if you're seeking, you do not have, right? If you're seeking, then you do not have, right? And so if you're seeking, that means you, again, sorry, I was just doing a blocking. So I'm just getting my thoughts back in order. But you guys are welcome. Preppy, how have you been? Introduce yourself. What have you been up to? So, what does it mean to love, right? And it's not that kind of stuff that you watch at the movie theater with your friends and that like the guy or the girl meets the guy and the girl meets the guy and the guy meets the girl and they go through some problems and they have some sort of issue and then it ends happily ever after. That's not love. That kind of love is boring. Why? Because you know the arc. You know what's happening from beginning, middle, and end. Everybody knows what a rom-com is. Love is not that. And I really hate to be trite and cliche and boring about this, but love is a verb. It's an action, but it's an action from within to without. That's why he's saying if you seek, then you are actually doing all of those things that are saying, I don't have. So meaning if you're going out and you're looking for someone to fall in love with you and to validate you, guess what? They're going to show you the opposite because they're a mirror. Okay. So what that means is that you need to become your own reflection. So you need to become the version of the person that you want to become, whether you want a friendship, it really doesn't matter. But I want to go deeper than this because most people hear this, right? And so when Neville talks about love, he talks about it on one level as reframing. We're going to come back to that. Two, he talks about it from the ancient Greek concept. Now, in ancient Greek, there were many different types of love. There was phileo, which has nothing to do with feeling. It has to do with brotherly love, right? That platonic, like, hey, do you want to hang out? Oh man, we're totally connecting. It's so much deeper, right? No, it's hey Rusty, welcome in. By the way, introduce yourself. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Introduce yourself. Where are you from? No, this is about manifestation. I don't believe the Bible is a historical document. I don't believe any of those people lived. So it's actually a psychological document, right? Tommy, how are you? What have you been up to? Guys, can you do me a big favor? Just spam the comments with how are you? Right? And probably not right now, Meet, but maybe on a different stream. How are you, Meet? Where have you been up to? Oh, thank you. I appreciate prayers. I just have a very different definition of prayer. Most prayers define as begging or asking, and that's not what it is at all. Prayer is assuming you already have your desire. Prayer is assuming that you do it, right? Tommy, how have you been? What have you been up to? Guys, go follow Tommy. They're amazing. Good. Happy New Year, by the way, everybody. Yeah, I don't, love is an act of separation, being separate. Okay, so, but let me say this, because this is going to come off very, very weird. Okay, love is a form of, how do I say this? Ideological violence. Ideological violence. I'm not saying it's violent. I'm not saying, and I'm not propagating or perpetuating idea of love as violence at all. What I'm saying is it's a separation. Love is a form of ideological separation from the old concept to the new concept, right? Even Neville says this. He says that essentially, once you are embraced by love, you will then wear the robe of the risen Christ. What's the risen Christ? Well, the risen Christ is an esoteric metaphor of you getting what you desire, right? And so that is a metaphor. So he's actually giving you the answer by actually also challenging you with how do you define love? Because it's not what is love, baby, don't hurt me, right? I love that movie, Night at the Roxbury. But Love is a death. Love is death. Love is macabre in that sense. Love is not the rom-coms that you see in the movie. That's not love at all. In the ancient world, the word love is a verb. It's all action. So the ancient Hebrew authors, they hated cliches like, life is an adventure, or oh my gosh, the sun will always shine after the rain. They absolutely hated that kind of stuff. Why? Because it was too structured. It was saying life is this way. No, it's not. That closes you up to the possibility of having an adventurous life if you are always following these kind of neat little fortune cookie views of the world, right? Yes. Yeah. So, oh, that's awesome. How have you been working on the ego? That's so cool. The physiological sigh. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Yes, yeah. Don't be afraid of yourself, because remember, the only person that's giving you fear is you. That is the only person. No matter what a person does to you, right, or says to you, or how they react to you, or what kind of, say like stuff that they say about you to others, that doesn't matter. It's how you react, right? And how you react becomes your freedom or your prison. And so it really is dependent upon you. Right. And so, one of the things that I just wanted to really, really get across is that Neville never writes in a first level. He always writes in threes, usually twos or threes. And that means when he uses a word, he's defining it three different ways. Right. And so, love in the Greek is the highest form is agape. That literally means self-sacrifice. That means getting rid of the ego. Now, do I think that you don't have to have an ego? Well, you have to have something to overcome. If you get rid of your ego fully, you have nothing to overcome. But if you overcome it and overcome it and overcome it, you get to reshape it. That's what Neville refers to as reframing, but he also calls that love, right? And so he has this like vision, and he talks about this like it's kind of a crazy, kind of awesome vision. But I don't necessarily agree with him fully here, but because he uses a lot of Carl Jung's work, and he talks about his embodiment of doubts, right? And he kind of says it's like this blackish kind of like gorilla-esque character that represents all of his fears and limiting beliefs and childhood limitations and all this kind of stuff. And there's this beast, right? And in this vision, he has this crazy vision, and then in it, he has this kind of like grotesque embodiment of fears, right? But then he says also, to contrast that, in the same vision, right, he sees something that's like an angelic, beautiful angelic character, right, which is obviously all of his achieved desires, all of his, everything that he desires, right, all of those things all coupled into one, okay? And so what he's talking about, and I'm going to answer your question. Thank you for that. And guys, if you can do me a big favor, just like do 5, 6 shares, do double tap, do some, all of that helps the algorithm, and like make sure that you hit that follow, and let me know how your day is, how your week went. Use some emojis if you want. Oh, thank you, Tommy. And so, I think when he shares this vision, and he shares what happens during this vision. Oh, thank you so much. And he says, listen, every time I was violent towards this embodiment of all of my fears and beliefs, it grew, expanded, it got bigger. But then, this is very key, this is why we're talking about love today, but love as a manifestation tool, not an idea. We're not talking about idea. I don't like talking about ideas on here, because we could talk about ideas like at a Starbucks. This is about giving you guys tips and tools and strategies. So, so basically, when he has this vision, the reason why I don't agree with him, and I'll go and do a Q&A one day, but basically because I don't agree with most of Carl Jung's stuff. And so he was very influenced by Jung. He refers to Jung in his work. Jung actually refers to him one time. I believe it's in the red book. It could be the black book, but I'm not sure. I'm going to buy all of them. And so basically when he says, what I've learned is that I have to embrace them. Not embrace them as in I identify with them, love them. See, so love is what changes things. Love is what alters the old into the new. It changes the old patterns. But what is love? Well, for him, that's reframing. What is reframing? Well, that's a scientific tool. It's from science. It's from the very field I train people in. And so love is reframing. All right. Oh, okay. So, hey, Raheem, what's up? Um, we're talking about how Neville approaches the idea of love, but not love as an idea, love as an actual technique. Like love is something that you can use to help you manifest, right? And so not the love like in rom-coms, right? Not the love of like, hey, here's Jack and he falls in love with Sally and they have an issue and they have some sort of fear or their family issues or and then no, that's not love at all. That's masturbatory. That's one of my favorite words because what that means is it makes you feel good, but it doesn't bring you life. Just think about that. And so it just makes you feel good about yourself, but it doesn't bring anything. It doesn't bring any change. So that kind of love is extremely boring because you know the arc. The biblical kind of love that Neville talks about a lot as a technique, as a role. And this is very key because I guarantee you, most people that struggle with manifestation don't love themselves. And I don't like to even say that because it sounds so cheesy and life coachy. And even though I'm a coach, I don't like it because it sounds so, like so icky because it doesn't really get to the root of what's being said. Like for you not to love yourself doesn't mean that, oh, I love myself and I love all of who I am. And that's out of the woo category and I'm not for that. Right. And again, I'm not slamming you if you're into the woo and lighting candles and you believe in birds before landing and 444 and all this kind of stuff. And you know, some of those things I use from time to time, but as techniques because I know my power is me. And so to me, love is the awareness that you are the only power that exists. And that's what Neville really means. Like that's the third level, right? Is realization that there is no other power because I don't need, remember, this is his quote, right? If you seek love, you only find your own lovelessness. Okay. If you seek out love, that means if you're going to chase things that make you feel good and better, and you want to feel more accepted and validated, and you want to find an SP who does all those things for you, you're going to find another SP, and you're going to find another one, and you're going to find another one, and you're going to find another one, right? And then that's like, and I'm sure you've met those people or even heard of them, even as a joke. Like, hi, my name is Brenda. This is my 7th husband. And you're like, wait a minute, wait, what? Your 7th husband? You didn't learn the other 6 that maybe the common denominator was you, right? And so because people don't want to change. And so, you know, love is change. That's the 4th component. Love is change. So if you want to really learn how to manifest, learn how to change, right? Yeah, right. And I still will come back to your question, right, Tommy? And so, so again, I'm not talking about love, romance love. That's included in this. But love is also connective tissue. Love means, love is something that means I already have what I want. So when I say I love myself, I'm not saying it as I'll love myself one day. When I say I love myself, I mean I love myself now and forever. Like this isn't something that I work towards. So your desires in the imagination, you never work towards. There is a component here in this world where you might have to be inspired. That's key, to act. And that doesn't mean this is I'm going to say something very controversial. I have a whole Reddit article that's probably about 4 pages on why you should act, because there's a whole crap load of misunderstanding about what Neville means about action. Always take action, always. But take it from love. Take it from being connected to your desire. That's what he's saying. He's not saying fear it. I know there's examples of people who didn't do anything for 2 years. That's cool. All that proves is that they could have probably maybe had done it way sooner, right? Now, and I'm not trying to make a judgment, right? And yeah, so basically, and I can still talk about Jung. I don't agree with Jung. I think he's too basic. And most of my training is in psychology. Yeah, he's too structuralist for me. And one day I actually will do that. And so, guys, when you come on here, just be nice. Like literally, it costs you nothing. And I mean that. It literally costs you nothing to say something nice. If you've been taught otherwise, go fix that. Like you're a responsible person, right? So be responsible for that. So you know, yeah, I mean, with this idea of love, to me, love is death. Love is death to the self. Love is death to the old story. Love is death to your old identity. Because this is really about identity, right? You have an identity, you have a way of thinking and a personality that's wrapped around that. And that will tell you how to behave in this world. You are already acting. You're already taking action and so on and so forth. So just take action from love. But again, this is why I almost didn't want to use the word love today, because people will hear it and they'll leave because they'll think I'm talking about romantic love. That's how warped our mind is, because society has defined love as this. And I'm saying, no, love is radical. Love will cost you everything. Love is dying to your old self. That's the Greek agape version and the understanding. It's the highest form of love, right? Love is death to your old limiting thoughts. Love is death to seeing your family as evil. Love is death to seeing yourself as poor. Love is death, death, death. Do you get this? Right? It is the most radical thing that you can do. That's what agape means. That's what Aristotle meant. That's what Socrates meant. When they referred to love, they were not referring to phileo unless they were talking about phileo, right? All of this kind of stuff. Walter, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Yeah, guys, if you can hit the likes, hit the spam the heart buttons, spam the comments with who you are. If you're new, don't forget to join the Discord. There's a free link. If the Discord link is dead, get me on my email. Also, I am a professional coach. I've been coaching for like 10 years. Been doing Neville's work for about 4 years. And I've been coaching, and I do have coaching programs that make it affordable for you as well. So hit me up on that email. The email's still live. So, and I'm probably going to be doing an event very soon as well. And we're making a decision right now whether it's going to be paid or free. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you join the Discord. And Tommy, if you're still here, I did see your question. I'm going to come back to it. So love isn't feel good. If love is, if you're measuring love by feel good, that's not love. That's infatuation. Whether that's infatuation with being rich, infatuation with, winning the lottery, infatuation. By the way, a lot of people come on here, why haven't you won the lottery? I don't want to win the lottery. I have no desire. Never had, actually. I grew up with a mother who struggled with an addiction to gambling, and she would even take us into these Vegas things and have us do gamble with her at the age of 11 and 7. I have no desire. One, and then also the other side is I'm a behavioral scientist. They've done way too much research to show people winning the lottery don't change their lives. And I'm happy to show you those links. And they follow people over 5 years, right? Actually, see, KP, I would actually say it's not feeling at all, right? Love is connective tissue. Love is, I know I have it. Love is reframing, like looking at a negative and saying it's actually something completely different, and looking at it through the eyes of the inner self, which is, I see everything whole and complete and joyful. So do you ever have an emotional high? Of course. And I'm not against emotional high, but if you measure everything on an emotional high, then what happens when you don't have it? Because to be consistently in an emotional high, and I have a friend who wrote a great book on how emotions are made, a neuroscientist, and is to basically go into a mental breakdown. We have to have emotional rest. I mean, even Neville talks about the day 7 in manifestation, right? That's emotional rest, right? And so there has to be a level of, of inner acceptance that love isn't a feeling, that love is a measurement of how distant you are from what it is that you want, right? And so do I love this? How emotions are made. And the last name is Barrett, Barret. Let me go back through. Okay, you've been working on that one. And guys, feel free to ask questions. Introduce yourself if you're new. What common issue with manifesting do I see? Honestly, we're actually talking about it. Fear of change. Fear of change is the biggest one. And then also seeing that what they're manifesting is fearful. They fear the law because one, they don't trust their own power. Two, they trust a power outside of themselves, which is kind of the same, but it's still different. And then but all of it's change. All of it. Every single part of this is change. If you were to be like, hey, what's the one word that defines manifestation? Change. Because if you don't change, then you don't manifest, right? And so Tommy, does that help? Like, basically, change is love. Love is change because remember, love is a form of violence towards the self, towards the old self. It's literally, I mean, even Neville talks about beheading chickens, right? And he uses the metaphor of like when you have this chicken who's kind of chilling and you're beheading it and the body's still moving around. That's when people are like, why is it that when I'm changing myself, I still see fragments or moments of the old story? It's like that chicken, right? The body's still kind of writhing and giving up and all of this kind of stuff. So it's not that you've done something wrong, but see, that goes back to Tommy's question. Like, people really doubt themselves a lot. So this is like that quote that I'm sure you've heard of from Marianne Williamson, who gets really hyper quoted from Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela did not say this originally. It was Marianne Williamson. And I'm going to butcher the quote, but I'm going to do the short version of it, which is, we don't fear our success. We fear our failure. Let me say it a different way. We don't fear that we might fail. We don't fear our doubts. We fear that we might be God, right? And so this is a huge, huge issue because for me, people would rather stay where they are, right? And see, well, I would actually say it's the opposite. Right? I would say that actually we fear our own success, just like that quote says, right? And so we don't fear failure. We think we fear failure, but we really don't, because failure doesn't mean that you've actually failed. It means you're learning, right? And that's why love for Neville is all about reframing what it is. So he even talks about the idea of reframing. So how do you do this? Well, you love rather than become violent towards your limiting beliefs, right? Yes, yeah, I believe in them. I just don't know what they look like. And I think all of our ideas of them, MPG, are completely not what we think they are. If we ever encounter them, it's completely opposite to what I think they are. I think they're way more smarter. I don't think we should fear them or anything, right? With social anxiety, I do exposure therapy, but the self-consciousness makes me want to not take action. I always improve and love that part, but it feels uncomfortable. Oh, well, Neville says, he says, listen, though false, like that's his words, though false, let me just say it a different way. Though false, continue to assume that you have what it is that you desire. Though false, okay? Though false. MPG, man, we could help you manifest a different one, but think that you're already in it. Feel that you're already in it. Accept that you're already in it. Assume that you're already in it, right? And so, you know, I think when it comes to social anxiety or any anxiety, I would start, this is reframing, by the way, reframing. Okay, for you, Raheem, don't call anxiety anxiety, call it opportunity. That's first one. So we're talking about how Neville defines love as reframing. That's how you love yourself. Start reframing negatives into positives. There's actually research that shows that when you do this, it actually makes you live longer. True story, right? The actual caps on the end of your telomeres are actually either growing or not decaying, right? And that means you're living longer just by reframing. So when Neville says, I've learned to not be violent towards my limiting beliefs, which is that vision he shares, right? And he learns to embrace it. And the more he embraced it, it actually went down and it went smaller. And he goes, I will commit to this process for the rest of my life, right? And so that's my challenge to you, right? And that's why I love coaching, because I can come alongside people and to actually help them do that and build the process that works for them and then let them on their way. I don't like being one of those coaches that sits and says, give me your money, give me your money, give me your money. Yes, there's a money part, but no, I don't like, for me, if people are doing that, please leave them. Like that's not a coach. Yeah, well, no, that's literally an example. So, Raheem, reframing is full on taking an idea that's negative and then giving it a positive meaning. Okay, so it is taking something like anxiety and no longer calling it anxiety. Because remember, your brain's recording all the time. So why don't you tell it stuff that's actually worth you wanting to experience what you want to experience? Be like, no. So for example, when I started out, doing stand-up, I was really nervous, right? And I would say, no, that's not nervousness, that's excitement. Like, I'm full on excited. This is me just being juiced up because I know it's gonna go great, right? And then over about a month or two, I believed it. Now I don't get nervous. Like, it just doesn't, I don't think nerves. I don't. And so Neville talks about the work of Spinoza, and maybe I'll do a special on Spinoza's work, because most of my background is in philosophy and teaching philosophy in university. And so the Spinoza was kind of, I mean, you could say he was an intellectual. He was like kind of a mystic, but he was a philosopher, and he almost got burned at the stake. And so because he basically said God is nature, right? God isn't something outside of you. It's part of you. But he also said another idea. And for like about a year, I was like, why does Neville make a big deal about this guy? Well, this is hopefully going to answer your question more, Raheem. And he has an idea of what's referred to as association. Okay, so don't worry, this is not going to make sense for a second, but this will come back to Raheem, hopefully kind of clarifying for you. So in his idea of association, he argues, and I agree, neuroscience backs this up, is that our brain associates concepts, and our brain experiences those concepts as separate entities. Don't worry, I'm going to make sense of this. Separate ideas unto themselves, okay? Now, what does this mean, and why does it have anything to do with manifestation? Because Neville loves Spinoza. Let me give you a grounded example. A cat isn't a cat. A cat is a ball of fur with a tail, with two eyes, that purrs and makes a sound and communicates and has whiskers and might think has a God complex, right? And all of this kind of stuff. But a cat isn't this thing that you see and perceive. It's all of those things perceived together as an object, right? So when Neville says, and he's quoting and he's going through Spinoza's work, he's saying we're associating meaning to things. We're associating more than one meaning. Okay, we're associating many things all at once. So that's what a state is. You're like for example, you could be rich and a douche, or you could be rich and giving, right? And so that's associating two ideas, right? Because most people have this idea of rich people being douches. Why? One, that may be keeping you from you getting rich and wealthy and sustainable income. Actually, here's the truth of what I do and why I do what I do. I don't want to make people rich. I want to make you wealthy. That's very different, very different. And so, that is for me very, very key. And I could go into this probably for an hour just on Spinoza's work and how his idea of attribution, could help us in manifestation. But the short of it is that this goes back to, what you're talking about, right? Raheem, so it's about reframing. But reframing means you're giving an object a new meaning that you might have been taught that has a different meaning, right? So for example, one of my favorite quotes is by another philosopher, and she says, language exiles us from the object of our desire. Language exiles us from the object of our desire, okay? What that means is a cup can never be a plane. A cup can never be a house. A house could never be a car. Why? Because we've attributed or we've created a link between separate ideas, and then we said that's that object, right? And this is what we do with fear. This is what we do with love. This is what we do with anxiety. So when you, for example, say you have anxiety, your brain goes into hyper mode, like we've talked about before, and creates links between relationships about what anxiety looks like. Most of those, by the way, haven't even been given to you. Most of it's by your parents or society or reading about psychology, reading about anxiety. And so now you've created a link in a chain that does not serve you, right? And so reframing is, I'm going to actually call this something completely different. Whereas psychology, that's most of my training, will say anxiety is a disorder, and right, and it's basically you either looking towards the past or the future and being stuck in one of those, and so on. Great. That doesn't do anything for you. What it does, though, is it gives you this concept that you start living out, and it gives you a body, this here, to live it out with, right? Are you with me so far, or is it a little bit heady? And so that is ultimately what you're doing when you are embracing and saying, oh, well, this is why, and he got it in the neck. He was all over the news for this. I don't necessarily agree with him either, but I get why he said it. And I don't think I would say this. One, because I think we live in a time where I think you can't just keep saying everything you want to say. But I mean, like, you know, Tony Robbins got it in the neck for a few years back for saying ADHD doesn't exist. Now, I have ADHD, right? I wasn't offended by that. I've read another book from a psychiatrist who was himself diagnosed with ADHD, who he himself doesn't agree with it. And it's a very thick book. It's called The Myth of Normal. And I would highly encourage you to get it. And so essentially he is talking about when Neville's referring to this, he's saying, listen, you can create, I might have anxiety in the moment, which is fine to say, right? But now I know I'm going to overcome it. Like it's not a feature of who I am. So when you start saying I have this, that's who you're saying that you are. And that's what you're going to create out of. Does that make sense? And so when you're developing your self-concept, and remember, when Neville says it's all about self-concept, he's referring to the work of Spinoza. What he's really saying is it matters how you identify and what words and ideas you choose to identify with, okay? Because you can say, I want to be wealthy and I want to be kind. I want to be wealthy and I want to be 100% healthy, right? And so you, like, that's the creation of a state, right? You are creating an identity with several different ideas attached to it. Does that make sense? I'm going to go silent for a second because I want to make sure everybody's kind of processing. I think there were some questions earlier as well. Does not want to die. Yeah, I want to change the old self attacks. So, Tommy, why do you think that the old self attacks? What are you experiencing? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for you though, like, I mean, because there's a specific story, right? So, and again, there's another opportunity. Like you all are making this really easy for me. So when you use the word attack, guess what you're associating with your own power? I can't overcome it. Like I feel attacked. So once you start using those kinds of words, you're telling your brain, I feel like I'm a what? I'm a victim, right? So then you're going to play a victim. It's going to pop on your reticular activating system, which means kind of like think of those like horse blinders where it's like, okay, and tunnel vision. It's only going to show you things in your world, and it's going to literally control your eyes like a remote control and say, I want you to only see that you're a victim. So then when you start using things like I'm powerful, like I'm always powerful, I'm strong, right? But remember, this is not about just affirmations. You got to believe it. You got to hardwire it, right? And so, you know, those are concepts that you have to realize that, you know, and this is why Neville was against generic affirmations. He was not, and I will disagree with that forever. He was not against affirmations. He was against a type of affirmation. The lullaby method is one of his techniques, and it's literally, man, I'm like, it's literally affirming at a bedtime, right? And so it's about you being it now, right? So when you walk away from this conversation, you're no longer Tommy who struggles with finances. You're Tommy who is kick-ass and knows what to do and makes the right decisions and the best decisions, right? And knows how to make those. And Neville says in one of his things, he goes, guys, this is an instrument like a violin. And I have an article on Reddit, right, under my name, Jordan Bridger or OK Initiative. And it talks about this idea of the violin, the spiral violin. Because change happens as a spiral, right? We love to think of things in lines. That's a very Western concept. The ancient world, the Kabbalah, everything seems to love the image of a spiral. And so Neville even talks about the spiral as well. He talks about it a couple times. But he talks about it in the Old Testament, and it's in reference to David, right? But it's a metaphor for the inner self growing inward, right? And so that's the whole concept. That's why it's a spiral. A line will always point to something outside of you, right? And so a spiral will always point inside. Why? Because you're walking, and the more that you walk in the interior, you become more interior, more inside, right? And so on and so forth. And that's the Kabbalah, by the way. And that's a lot of my training. Maggie, I have no idea. Was that you? I'm experiencing loads of cognitive distortions. Even now, it's like the mind is trying to distort when you're saying it. Yeah. So, and again, remember, that's not abnormal. I mean, like Neville says, and I know I keep like quoting him. It's because I think it's important that if we're going to follow any of his work, and I'm not one of those militant, right? Yes, thank you. That's my belly button hair. Thanks for noticing, Nuya. So, you're going to basically, all right, two things. And this is a technique. You're going to feel like you are, yeah, Lane, is one, you're going to feel like you're gaslighting or being gaslit by your environment. You're going to feel like you're being gaslit by other people if they're not supportive. You need to fight back by gaslighting yourself. That's actually a technique. Because remember, he says, though false. What he's saying is you're going to feel like this isn't real. You're going to question yourself. You're going to go through periods of this isn't happening. I don't believe in the law. You're going to do it all of it. He even says, the scripture, which isn't a historical document, is something that you're going to live. What he really means by that, by the way, is you're not going to experience what it means to be David, right? But that you're going to go through a spiritual journey, okay? And that your spiritual experience is going to look different, right? Yes. Yeah. And so, yeah, so you feel, Jesus, if he ever lived and if he ever was a real person, felt abandoned by the law. Because God is just another name for the principle. God is just another name for your imagination. God is just another name for the pattern maker, which is inside of you, right? And he says, why have you turned your back on me, right? And so, and what does that mean? Jesus wasn't meant to be a physical person, right? But even if he wasn't, what that's saying is Jesus is the imagination, or as the imagination is going to eventually feel betrayed by consciousness. It's going to eventually feel betrayed. Like, where are you, right? What I find so interesting, and this is reframing again, the Psalms are notorious. Like, I mean, they are famous for reframing, because a huge chunk of the Psalms in the Bible are people, poets, who are like, God, where are you? You've abandoned me, blah, 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 blah. And then by the end, it's like they went through schizophrenia. Like they were just like, God, where are you? I can't feel you. I can't experience you. Everything's dark. And they use all these huge, grand metaphors. And then at the end, but I will love you, but I will seek you, but I will find you, but I will, right? And so because they're reframing. And this is them going through the process. So what I guess I'm trying to do is, and you're not going to hear a lot of coaches say this, because most of them are just believe, just change, just accept. That's awful mental health advice. Okay, a lot of my training is in mental health. That is awful. When Neville says you're an emotional filter, he's saying you need to understand, one, that you're easily impacted and you're going to easily respond to things. But you've got to retrain yourself, which is reframing, right? To not do that. Two, the whole idea of being an emotional filter means you need to deal with it. You don't just sit there and deny it, okay? You say, I feel this way right now. However, I know the God in me is bigger than this. That's the story of David and Goliath. That's the story of you being David, and then whatever issue that you have is Goliath. Because what did he do? He had 5 stones. What were the 5 stones for? Well, if it's a literal event, it was for his 5 other giant brothers. If it's not, and this is where I stand with Neville, is it's your 5 senses. You go inward. You go inward and you use your 5 senses. The 5 stones, 5 senses, right? You're bringing new facts to an old story. And you're saying, this is the new story, right? So yeah, Tommy, oh, thank you for that. So Tommy, thank you for sharing, by the way. I really appreciate that. So what I said earlier about us being afraid of playing it big, playing successful, we are afraid of success. And I actually agree with that quote more than anything, because we are afraid to discover our godness. I don't even know if that's a word. It's too close to the word Loch Ness. So now I'm stuck in like a lake in the middle of Scotland. But I mean, like, basically, it's something where it's easier to play small because it costs you less. That's why I said earlier, I said, if you really want to understand what the word love means as it is related to Neville, it means change. It means behead yourself metaphorically. It means behead the old man, take him out, right? I mean, full on, treat him like George and Lenny and George and of Mice and Men, take him out and shoot him, right? And but out of love. Like, what I mean is the only way that you take him out and shoot him is by loving him. Because that means what that really means is, let's say that you are more comfortable playing small, Tommy. Well, then that means someone in your life told you that playing small is way safer, way better. You won't have threats, and not getting what you want, or maybe even compromising a little bit, is actually something that you should do. And I'm not saying that you don't compromise with the person that you're married with, right? That's like an in and out relationship, and you figure things out as you go along. I'm not saying that. I'm saying with your desires, right? And you don't need them to validate your desires anyways, right? And so if you believe you need to play small, you'll always be seeking validation from something outside of yourself. Right. And again, remember, and I love this about Neville, because a lot of people misinterpret what this means by playing big. They think I need to be douchey and go out and be really mean and really rude to other people, like customers, like service. I ordered this and I paid for this, and that's not love. Like Neville says, treat unto others. Let that be your golden rule. Right. Neville talks about mental diet. And I was just obsessed with making sure that there is not unwanted mental dialogue. So remember, he's talking about the dominant of 2 states. Like if you listen to Joseph Murphy, who I would also encourage you to listen to as well, and he was a psychologist just like me. And so it's the dominant of 2 states. What state are you in? Lack or satisfaction? Right. And so if in that particular area, so I love to teach this to my coaching clients, and that's called the Pareto principle, Pareto. And it's actually from the business world, which is where I do a lot of my coaching as well. And so that's business coaching, leadership coaching, communication coaching, not Neville coaching. Neville coaching is the arm of what I do. And so when you're, in this kind of area of mental diet, how about we talk about this for a minute, and then I've got to go in about 5-7 minutes. But like, basically, mental diet doesn't mean you're going to hit every or reverse. You're God. Why would you need to reverse anything? If this is about belief, which I believe it is, then you could make a belief that like nothing you think that's in the negative is ever going to influence you. You're God. So if you think that you need to keep up with your thoughts, you're going to be exhausted. Research shows that we think anywhere from 55 to 70,000 thoughts a day. A day. Sorry, my dog wants out. Right. And so in the midst of that, right, is you're going to exhaust yourself. You're going to go into mental breakdown if you try to think that this is about chasing thoughts. What it is it's simply reframing everything, which means looking at it from a positive angle. That's one. Mental diet isn't just that. Mental diet is from. remember he says think from. That's what mental diet is. How am I thinking from? So that's where affirmations come in. That's where writing in the present tense or the past tense that you have your desires, right? That's where story writing happens. That's where mood boards, all of these kinds of things happen because they're trying to get you into the state of I already have it. Remember, when you going into these like first person narratives or first person story times, first person states akin to sleep, you're doing it from the first person, but you're doing it as if you have it now. You're not going in to get. You never go in to get. You're going in to be the person who already has it. If you want a house, you're not going in to earn a house. You're not going in to go shake the real estate agent's hand. You're going in because you have the keys in your hand, and this is the fourth time you've opened the door, right? And so that's the major difference. No matter what the issue is, you have to think of that. Okay, how am I already that person? Then once you open your eyes, what's 2, 3, 4, 5 decisions I can make from this new state of being this new person now? I'm a big believer in action. No, you don't have to do action, but I do believe it helps. And Neville was not against action, right? So again, Tommy, someone said you can never use the law to do harm to yourself. It's against God's love, and God does not allow that. Now, if you believe that, then 100% follow through on that, right? I mean, because if you have a belief that you can never hurt yourself, then you can't. But if you're always constantly questioning and fearing your doubts, you can. But the reality is people mostly fear their doubts for the future. But here's the thing, meaning they're like, oh my gosh, if I keep thinking this way, it's going to ruin my future. It could, but the reality is that you already have those thoughts now. You're living the future of fearing your thoughts now. It's already been happening. It's been your last 10 years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 weeks, whatever it is, you're already living that life, right? And so the encouragement for you is to get in this state of always being right about your desire. You're always correct. Meaning if you don't have it, you're correct. If you have it, you're correct. If you have to do X, Y, and Z to get it, you're correct. If you have to do nothing, you're correct, right? And so that's where I would encourage you all to start, right? Is to work with your self-concept of realizing you're God. Even Neville says this. Before you go in to do your SATs, he says, sit in the I am. Why? Because you are taking away all the labels, right? You're going to have desires until you die, Raheem. So what you have to do is you have to figure out the priority of which ones you want. So I would sit down and say, who am I right now? Who do I want to be? What desires are going to get me to where I want to be? And then start feeling that now and start making decisions from that now, right? So I would ask, what are my priorities based on who I want to be? Not, so let me use this. This is what we use in behavioral science. From the future self, right? From the future version of yourself, how would they prioritize what you would want, right? Not how am I because right now you're literally measuring, right, against what you don't have. So you're going to make decisions about priorities based on what you don't have. Remember what he said in this quote: if you're seeking love, then you will always be loveless, right? If you're seeking riches and wealth, then you will always be poor, right? You don't seek it because you go in to have it, right? And so my encouragement to you is to prioritize from the future. Never prioritize from the now, right? And we know, yes, I know the future doesn't exist and so on and so forth, right? But, ask yourself, write down 10, 15 qualities of this new person, and then let that be the guide that would say, yeah, this person who was a billionaire would make this decision very different from how I would make it now as the person who is identifying as a poor person. Because remember, that's all this is. You're identifying as somebody. And the more that you identify with your fulfilled desire, the more that it'll become natural. But as soon as you give up, you're going to default, right? So, hopefully everybody, this was helpful. Thank you for all the questions, by the way. It does help. And again, just know that I'm here for all of you. I love what I do. I'm good at what I do. So if you're looking for coaching, get in touch. I do have payment programs on the regular, and everything from, paying, over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to all the way up to a month. So you can break it down over 3 months, 6 months to a year. So get in touch. Hit me up on the emails. Join the Discord. If the link is dead, just hit me up on the email, and I'll make sure you subscribe. And thank you all for being here. You guys all make this really, really awesome. So please be safe, and I hope to jump on very soon. And remember, manifest well, because you actually deserve it, and I actually believe it.